And I think also because it was that punk DIY ethos of, here are all these kids that they just want to be musicians, because capitalism doesn't give you a lot of other options for things to do. So let's just start a band. Do you know how to play an instrument? Nope. Do you? Nope. Okay, let's just figure this out together. And so it was that same kind of DIY ethos that made me become a perfumer. It's like, I'll just teach myself how to become a perfumer. I'll just bang things around until I figure something out, and then I will finally have a perfume to call my own. And that's just kind of following in the footsteps of the artists that I've always just been, that I've always idolized. There just seems to be like something about the Pacific Northwest where it's like, you have really long dark winters and you have not a lot of things to do, so you're gonna make perfume. It just seems like the thing to do here. I started studying for perfume in 2011. I formed my business in 2013. I launched in 2015 online. It took me a long time to figure out what is perfume, how do you make perfume, what goes into the art, what goes into the chemistry. You really have to spend time with the materials, and you have to understand the properties of what these materials can do in a fragrance. When I started doing my perfume work and understanding how perfume works and collecting materials, I was developing vocabulary in my head. It's like learning the alphabet when you're a kid, and then you're taught the alphabet and how each letter of the alphabet has a different sound, and the vowels and the consonants, and then you put the diphthongs, and then you construct words, and you have to have those building blocks. And without the building blocks, you don't really understand how language works or how language evolves. And so for me, it was a lot the same for the natural materials, of that as I was collecting materials, my brain was going, okay, this is the letter A, this is the letter B, this is a sound, this is a vibration, this is going to be a bass sound, this is going to be something shimmering. As I started collecting more and more materials, all of a sudden I now had this language in my head. So then I'm listening to music that I've always listened and enjoyed, and weirdly then one day my brain started, like the sound would come in and then fragrances going out. There would be times where it would be so loud in my head, I would have to stop what I was doing and write everything down as I was smelling and hearing it at the same time. I was driving to work one day and I was listening to the song Incurable by Piano Magic. And I was listening to it, and all of a sudden, my head is just shouting fragrance notes, and it just won't stop. And it's this constant, just like this increasing wavelength of just volume in my head. And I had to pull over. I just had to write everything down, because in my head it was like just screaming the notes in my head, and it just wouldn't stop. And so I just finally wrote everything down, and then just kept driving. And then I went back home, and I'm looking at the notes, and I put together the fragrance, and I had Incurable. When you're growing up young with a family dynamic that is different from others, and then you also have a queer identity, you have a lot of, and then just basically just trying to grow up and live as a teenager. I think like for anybody, that's just a very difficult challenge. And so music for me was a means of survival, because like a lot of the times I was able to, the music could express how I was feeling better than I could extrapolate myself as a teenager. And there were so many different artists at the time where punk and industrial and alternative music just seemed to resonate the strongest with me, because they were exploring new ideas and avenues of music and music theory and their own personal strength and their own personal conflicts within themselves in a way that other music just didn't do that for me. But these are the kind of artists that shape you as an adult later on. So like that was the music that I grew up and loved. And so going back to listening to that, it was interesting because those artists then prompted my head to say, oh yeah, here's that song, and now here's that song that you've always loved, but now it's expressed in fragrance notes. I created this from the band Rima Rima and their song Rima Rima. And I didn't think that anybody would know who this artist is, because like they were a band that broke up before the album was released on 4AD. And it was just one EP that they did, Wheel in the Roses. And I loved this fragrance because it reminded me of like just an amazing punk show where everybody's just like jumping up and down and it's sweaty and there's leather jackets and you're just reeking of cannabis and someone's smoking weed in the audience, but like there's this kind of this beautiful combined scent in the room and you're all having fun, and it's just like this really rock and roll vibe, and it was so much of what I loved listening to when I was growing up. My studio, I've actually been trying to get into the space for years. And one random day I was just curious as to whether or not a space was available, and so I went looking on Craigslist and they were advertising it. And so I got in touch with the manager. She said, yeah, actually there's a floor unit that's available if you want to take a look at it. In October of last year, I was approved for the space. And so it's a nice small retail environment for people to just kind of hang out and smell fragrances with me. And they can ask me as many questions as they want. And I'm more than happy to also leave them alone if they'd rather just kind of be on their own to smell things. I've had a few people call because I'm on Google, and you can look for perfume and I will come up as a search result. And then people will call and they ask, do you have any Aventus? Do you have any vintage Serge Lutens? And it's like, nope, I don't sell those. I sell my own fragrances. I don't sell my perfumes like you would sell a car. That time is your best friend with perfume. So I encourage everyone to smell everything. Even if there's something that you don't necessarily like, I want you to challenge yourself. So if you're looking at something that says seaweed, be like, I don't know about seaweed. Like, no, I want you to try and smell seaweed. It's the same thing as when you were a kid. Don't say you hate Brussels sprouts until you actually try them, because you're gonna be surprised that you actually might really enjoy them. It would be lovely to do this full time for myself. I'm not quite there yet, so I have to balance this with, real world obligations. I think I've watched other people climb a ladder of success in the industry, but then also kind of just as quickly fall. And I think it might be because everyone was trying to jump for that next ring too quickly, or there were just scaling issues or cost issues that were that they didn't put into consideration. So for me, it's that I don't need to be at a level of, I don't need to be out there every day like kicking ass and taking names. And so even if I do find more success as a perfumer, I would still want to make sure that I temper that with my friends, of that I don't have anybody saying, oh, now you're an asshole, I don't like hanging out with you. Like, you used to be really cool, but now you're a jerk. It's like, so that's kind of where I want to temper it, is like, be happy, be successful, but still remain not falsely humble, but not disingenuous, but just remain myself. As hokey as that sounds.